Hello everybody and welcome to this edition of my bicycle blog. Today I'd just like to briefly share with you a little bit of history of the area that we call Uganda and how it ended up being part of the British Empire and ruled by Britain. In fact, up until the 19th century, the area of Uganda was four kingdoms. Four traditional kingdoms made up that area, each with its own king and its own government and way of doing things. And it wasn't until the mid-19th century that the first foreigners or outsiders started to come into the area. And these were originally in the form of Arab traders from the north. And they were coming in search at the time of slaves and ivory in particular. And they came bringing with them their religion, which was Islam. They were followed not long after by Catholics and Protestants who would be coming as missionaries and bringing their own religious rivalry at the time. Of course, today we do have lots of good positive relationships between interfaith and within churches, but in those days there was great rivalry, especially between Catholics and Protestants, and this was not just in Europe but was now overspilling to places like Africa. And along with these folks came British traders and other traders and arms dealers from Europe. Traders and arms dealers from Europe. So there's a real mixture of people all vying for trade and influence and power in this part of the world, all wanting their way of doing things to be established. Now, the British originally thought they would be able to run this area of Uganda through a commercial company, the Imperial British East Africa Company. But they found, because of all these rivalries around, that they would need to use the full weight of the British Empire and its influence and its military force to establish effective control in the area. They were helped in this by the fact that there were some religious wars that broke out between 1888 and 1892, wars between the different factions there. And one of the decisive factors was that the person in charge of the East Africa Company, a man called Captain Frederick Lugard, was the only person who had a Maxim gun. And a Maxim gun was an early form of machine gun, and of course with that they could really enforce with a few people their will and overcome people in certain battles. So the British were imposing their will on the area. First missionaries to arrive in the area who had got involved in all this were Protestants actually, and they came from the British Church Missionary Society. They turned up in 1877. Catholics, white fathers from France, came up in 1879, and it was a lot of religious rivalries evolving at the time, and the reason the sort of wars were to break out was partly when Mwanga II, one of the kings in Uganda, attempted to outlaw all these various religious factions. He had seen what was going on and he had decided that this really wasn't good for his people. But in that attempt he was deposed in 1888, and that's when the religious wars followed between Muslims and Christians. First the Muslims did win, they were triumphant, but Christians, obviously with the help of Lugard's Maxim gun, triumphed in the end. But then the Christians, the alliance they had, they all fell apart and broke out and they started arguing again and fragmented. and it was Protestants supporting a British claim for control with this Captain Lugard, who succeeded in the end. And in the end, the Catholic claim was pushed to one side and overcome. So Lugard and the British were to take control initially in 1894, where the British were to establish a protectorate over the largest of the kingdoms in Uganda, and then 2 years later they were to establish a protectorate over the rest of the area, the other kingdoms. This is part of the history not only of the great country of Uganda, but also of Great Britain. And it's important that we understand some of the things that were going on at this time, and some of the things that perhaps we need to pause and reflect upon, especially in these days when we feel we ought to be giving support to places like Uganda today. And this is one of the reasons why it is very appropriate, very important that we continue with our project through All We Can, and our bicycle project that will really make a difference to people today in those parts of Uganda that are in need. So I hope that you keep walking, keep cycling, keep running and adding those miles in, keep sending them in, because we're heading towards the pyramids I last heard on our attempt to get around the coast of Africa. And we're really moving on quite quickly towards our coast to coast as well. So lots of exciting things coming up during the last few months of our project for the Huddersfield circuit. Change begins with a bicycle. Well, I hope that's been of some interest to you, and that you have a good week. Take care and God bless. Bye for now.